Yeah, two things tonight. First off, this entire situation in Libya. And as some of us have already suspected, everything in our major news media is being distorted to the hilt as usual. So I'm going to post a link to a video that all of you should watch regarding what is out there in terms of support for Gaddafi and the millions of people who came into the streets of Tripoli, which happened a couple of days ago, which the Western media, by the way, interpreted as a threat. The headlines read that Gaddafi is threatening NATO and the Western world. Okay, so take a look at this video, look at the crowds, and then look at some of the rebel footage and see who is in support of whom, and then ask yourself a few questions. Okay. And then tied into all of this, a nice little story regarding this former IMF chief, Dominique Strauss-Kahn, whatever his name is, who was accused of raping this maid in this luxury hotel in the United States. And that case is also crumbling, and as I suspected right along, by the way, is that this was essentially a setup. And I think a lot of people are very naive when it comes to political intrigues and the kind of shit that can be manufactured in order to basically frame someone. And probably in this case, both this IMF chief, Dominique Strauss-Kahn, and this so-called maid were framed by very clever actors in the political sphere. So now it appears that the maid may not have been just a maid. In fact, she may have been an immigrant who essentially got into the sex trade to start with, just like many poor immigrants do, by the way. Then she somehow got connected to some criminal elements and so on. And then, of course, that was taken advantage of by the political intrigues much higher, up above her head. And who these players wanted this Dominique Strauss-Kahn out of the IMF, and particularly they wanted him out of the presidential race in France, because he would have been the only viable candidate actually opposing Sarkozy. And Sarkozy is a U.S. puppet, as you know. And all of these figures, by the way, this is high finance, and there's lots of interconnections there, but things are not what they seem. So I questioned this whole thing to start with, and I probably should have mentioned it here on YouTube. I neglected to do that because I don't get into ludicrous sex scandals on for whatever reason. But Paul Craig Roberts actually pinned it correctly, and he had his suspicions too, and he was both attacked from basically the right wing and the left wing here in the United States, and but he is also keenly aware of political power plays, and it's certainly beginning to look that was exactly the case. So in terms of Libya, how many more wars are we going to get involved in, basically? And France was the major push behind this, by the way, under Sarkozy. That's because, they have major interests in oil interests and so on in Libya. And then the rebels all of a sudden get, backings from major banks and major financiers all over the globe. And you wonder why that is, Now, Gaddafi isn't exactly what I would call a democratic leader, okay? But he's probably done more for his people than most politicians in the West would like to admit. Namely, he raised the living standards of that country by a large degree, and he tried to keep the sovereignty of his country intact. And of course, that can't be tolerated by Western powers. Which is why this entire mandate changed from humanitarian concerns to another regime change in that region. Anyway, I'd like you to I'd like you to watch that video. It's from Information Clearinghouse, but the actual video comes from Libya itself. And it is, once you click on the link, scroll down to the second video, please, and then watch the entire translation. And above all, watch the crowds. Watch the millions of people there. So once again, we're being lied to, and no big surprise, I suppose. So I've got a few other things to say. I've got a few articles here I'd like to share with you, including this whole mess in Greece and so on. I'll try to give you a little bit of background on this. I found a brilliant website which can explain it in layman's terms, not in these high-minded financial terms for regular people. So I'll try to do that tonight or tomorrow night, or sometime over the weekend. Anyway, thanks for your comments and your support, and I'll get back to you later. Good night.